Hello, this is Unit 2, Lesson 3 in our Quadratics unit. We're looking at solving quadratic equations by factoring. There are multiple ways to solve a quadratic equation, but you should always try to factor it first if you can, assuming that you can't use a calculator. All right, so to solve, when we're solving a quadratic equation, that means we're looking to find the zeros or solutions. Well, solutions you've heard of before. Some people have not seen this when we say the term zero. We call it a zero because you're setting y equal to 0 to solve it. Okay, so we call them, you're finding the zero or solution of the function. All right, the first step, if it's not already set equal to 0, we should always set the function equal to 0. All right, and then again, try to factor it first if you can. If you can't, then we'll have other methods in the subsequent lessons that you can try. All right, so let's do an example. This is called solving by grouping. Some of you have seen this before, some of you have not. It's okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the first term. Well, actually, let's look at this 0 first that I circled in red already. Okay, you absolutely have to set this equal to 0 first. It won't work. We already did that for you. But always make sure you set the equation equal to 0. Write it in descending order, so you have the squared term, the x term, and the constant term in order. We're going to take the first term and the last term and multiply those together. And you get negative 12. Now you need, similar to how you do it before when a is 1, you need two numbers that multiply to negative 12 that add up to negative 4. So look at your factors, 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, 4. So you're looking for factors that have a difference of 4, okay? And that's going to be here. So we're going to rewrite this as 3x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 4 equals 0. All I did was I rewrote this middle term into those two terms. Okay? Now I'm going to group it. I draw a line down the middle, and I'm looking at just this left side, 3x squared minus 6x. I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor of each term, which is 3x. So I have x minus 2 left. On the right side, I have a plus, factoring out a 2. Oops. Factoring out a 2, I'm left with x minus 2. And all of this is still equal to 0. Okay, so this should always happen. You should always get this same factor in both parts. Otherwise, you did something wrong. So what your factors are, in this case, are 3x plus 2, these two numbers here, and then x, oops, not plus, and then times x minus 2. Okay, so we factored the equation. Okay, but we're not done yet, right? We need to solve. We need to find the x values when y equals 0. All right, so what this means is that this 3x plus 2 term or this x minus 2 term has to equal 0 for this statement to be true. So we do 3x plus 2 equals 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. So then I solve each of these. 3x equals negative 2, x equals negative 2/3, or x equals 2. All right, factoring by grouping, It's already set equal to 0. So we took care of the first step for you. Try this one over here, number 1. And I'll have the answer when you come back. All right, let's take a look at how we did for number 1. The trickiest thing with this one that we didn't see in the first one is this part right here. There was nothing there. There was nothing up in this part of the equation that said there's a 1 there, but you have to assume whenever you see just an x or the variable that you can always factor a 1 out. Even though you're not actually dividing by anything, it gives you a value for that term right there. Okay? You could also factor out a negative. Remember, you have to factor. You have to get those same two factors. So whatever you need to factor out of the right side of the group, that right group, whatever you need to factor out of that to get these two parentheses to look the same is what you need to take out. If it's a positive, it's a negative, or if it's a 1. All right? So be careful with that. So now that we've looked at factoring by grouping or solving by grouping, let's check out another way to factor, another way to think about factoring is the area model. Okay? So it's exactly the same. We're still factoring. You still have to find two values that multiply and add to certain numbers. So you need to be able to find those factors, okay? But it's just a different way to organize the information. All right? So this is an equation, and I'm pointing this out. This may seem obvious to everyone, hopefully, but I want to point this out. There's an equation, or there's an equal sign here. That's an equation. That means you're solving. If you don't see that, that means you're just factoring. Okay? Just make sure you don't add an equal sign where you don't see one already. Okay, we see that a lot. Make sure you're not doing extra work if you don't have to. Okay, so it's equals. It's an equation we're trying to solve. We need the right side or one of the sides to equal 0. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 5x and 3 from both sides. All right, so again, we're still going to multiply the first and the last term. We're going to get negative 6. So I need two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add up to negative 5. Okay, so I'm going to do negative 6 and positive 1. All right, so that's where the similarities end. We're going to make a box here, and we're going to multiply within this box. Okay, we take our first term, 2x squared, put it here. Take our last term, negative 3, and put it here. So we're changing negative 5x to negative 6x and positive x. Okay. Now we're going to factor across the top. Okay. 2x squared minus 6x. What are the common factors here? What's the greatest common factor? You take out a 2x. Okay. So if I take out a 2x from 2x squared, what's left? I have an x. I'm going to write that down here. If I take out a 2x from negative 6x, what's left? Negative 3. Okay. So what you can do now is just check. Okay. This x divided by that x, what's left? 1. Check again. This 3 divided by this negative 3 is also 1. All right. So if you just have a 1 out here without a negative sign, that means positive. So your factors are 2x plus 1 times x minus 3. And that's still an equation, so it's still equal to 0. All right, so let's solve this one. 2x plus 1 equals 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. My solutions are going to be x is negative 1/2 or x equals 3. All right, so all the same steps except for how you organize your information here. So if this helps you see the factors a little more, you can try it this way. We're not going to tell you to do it one way or the other. We wanted to give you two choices so you can figure out what works best for you. All right, so try the second one and pause the video, and I'll come back. When you come back, we'll have the answer for you. So let's look at the answer for this one. The two factors you should use are negative 12x and 2x. All right, you set up your area. Now, you might have put the 2x and the negative 12x in a different spot. You should get the same factors. You'll factor different numbers out of different spots, but ultimately, you should get the exact same factors. Okay, so where you put the negative 12x and where you put the 2x for the area model, or where you put these factors for what we did above, up here, if you switch this negative 6x and that 2x, it should still work. Okay? So don't worry too much about that. As long as you pick the right factors, you're in good shape. All right, so as always, make a note of any questions you have, and we will see you next time.